Okay, so welcome to our channel. That guy over there is Danny Bossa. Welcome, Danny.
Thanks, that guy over there. And that guy over there is the freaking best dermatologist I've ever spoke to, Stephen Dr. Fox, the dermatologist from Belgium.
Okay, so very nice. Thank you,
Speaks
Danny.
French too, which is cool.
French, English, and rather Dutch, of course. Okay, so we did a video 2 weeks ago together, and we feel we are a great team. So a lot of things have been happening on my YouTube channel since the last TOT Doctors Roundtable, and this video will talk all about that.
Please like and subscribe. Thank you.
Make sure to watch the video till the end, because at the end I will be giving you some really great news. So tell us, Danny, what happened on the YouTube channel the last few weeks that stirred up some heat?
Some heat, a lot of heat.
Yeah.
So in our Facebook group, there were two doctors, Dr. Keith Nichols and Dr. Jim Meehan. Keith Nichols has been a huge proponent of the testosterone cream applied on the scrotum twice a day. He was one that did injections for a very, very long time. And after trying that application of the cream, he said he felt a million times better. He's got a bunch of patients who are also doing injections, switched to cream, did him a million times better. I feel really good on the injections, and I'm toying with the idea of trying this out. But and he's convincing me that this is the route to go. So I may try that myself. One of the effects of doing the cream is because it's applied on the scrotum, and the scrotum has a lot of 5-alpha reductase. The testosterone causes a boost in DHT by applying it that way. What happened was that Jim Meehan had chimed in saying, these DHT levels, you don't want to get them out of control. They could cause issues. It could be dangerous. You've got to measure them. Keith was not one to measure these things. He's also one not to measure estrogen or E2. So that turned into a big heated debate, and a lot of the people that were in the group were, they just want to have the right answer. They didn't really know who to believe. Keith made some strong arguments, and Jim is saying his own thing, and so it turned into a big kind of back and forth. So I can explain to you what the debate was and what the outcome was and what the resulting truth was, because the key word here is truth. And before I do that, I want to explain my opinion as to how one goes about getting truth. There are a lot of people out in the forums, on YouTube, and they're all around you, that they have an idea stuck in their head, whatever that idea is. And once they have that idea stuck in their head, they consider it their own personal truth. This is true to them, and there's nothing that anybody else on the planet that could say that's going to change the way they think about that personal truth. And they can be so sensitive about it and so attached to this idea that if other people say anything that is contrast to that idea, they get this reaction almost like, how dare you say that my truth is not the correct truth? How dare you say that it's black when I know that it's white? And they get very, very sensitive. There's a lot of people in the group that, they've gone through whatever it is they've gone through, they've learned whatever it is they've learned, and they've come up with an idea of what they think things are. And if anybody disagrees with them, they block. I'm going to block this person because it almost feels like it's discriminatory. I'm going to block this person. I don't want to hear what he says because that person is disagreeing with me, and how dare he disagree with me? If I was to go into this group where every single person agreed with every word that I said, and I agreed with every word that everybody said, that would be a really freaking boring group because nobody would learn anything. Okay, I go there with a totally different mindset. I go there with the stuff that I know could all be bullshit. Okay, excuse my French, it could all be bullshit. Everything I know could all be bullshit. I want to know what is true. And everything that I know right now is simply what is my best answer. Okay, That applies to everything. Does 2 + 2 = 4? People will say, yes, of course. Well, that's the best answer we have, because at one point somebody could come along and say, hey, I know everyone thought 2 + 2 was 4, and we've known that for hundreds or thousands of years, whatever it is, but look at this that I've just done. 2 + 2 actually isn't 4, it's something else. It could happen, and we're all going to sit there, minds blown, saying, here we are, we thought we knew what the right answer was all this time, and we've been wrong all this time. Now this guy has demonstrated what the actual truth is, and now we have a new best answer. This is now the best answer we have, and the best answer we have is still not true 100%, because somebody else could come along with an even better answer. And the more that time passes, and the more studies we do, and the more research we do, and the more we learn, and the more we ask questions, and the more we argue, the more and more these answers could develop over time. There was a time that we thought eggs were healthy for us, and then suddenly, oh, don't eat eggs, it's the cholesterol, it's going to give you a heart attack, it's going to do it. And now we know it's all crap. Eggs are great for you, you should eat eggs. You cannot have two people that agree with each other on everything and learn. If I think it's black and you think it's white, we cannot ever be in a position where we feel like we're being offended, or it's a discrimination, or it's hateful, or it's whatever it is. You have to figure out, okay, well, you think this, I think this. How do we go about determining what is actually true? How do we go about determining the right answer? For all you guys out there in these groups that can just continue to block every single person when they say something that you don't like, you're going to learn this. You're going to learn nothing. I learn stuff every single day. There's statements I've made on the group that I was absolutely convinced were true. I was convinced because I read it and because of wherever I got it. And someone would show me a study and say, look, it's not true, it's actually this. I learn stuff all the time. The best doctors that I've been speaking to, Dr. Keith, even Eric Serrano I've been talking to, new doctor I've been seeing, they've been learning almost more from their patients than they have anywhere else. And some of their patients would say, I'm making this claim and I know it sounds crazy, but here's my evidence to back it up. Okay, so I want to know what's true. If you agree with what I'm saying, great. Maybe we're both wrong. If you're disagreeing with what I'm saying, great. My ears, my eyes are open. You have to provide the evidence. You have to demonstrate that what you're saying is true. Okay, and if you're going to make a statement that is fantastic, a statement that is incredible, you're going to need to provide incredible evidence. So an example I can use is, if Stephen, you were to tell me you've got a big purple dinosaur that lives in your backyard, I'd think you're nuts. But if you say, Danny, I can demonstrate that I have a purple dinosaur, I can prove it. Here's a picture. Okay, well, picture's great. Picture could be photoshopped. The picture could be grabbed from anywhere. And you say, well, I can demonstrate it further. It is true. Come to my house and I will show you. So I fly to Belgium, and sure enough, I see the big purple dinosaur in your backyard, and I can touch it and I see it and I can interact with it. And you're telling me, Danny, there's people coming over tomorrow to study this dinosaur. I can then go around and tell everybody that Stephen's got a big purple dinosaur in his backyard. And people are going to say, well, hey, he demonstrated to me. I went there. I saw it in person. You can go there too. Go to his house. You will see it for yourself. I'm not lying. It's the truth. So if you're going to make a big claim, you need to demonstrate it. And an extraordinary claim will require an extraordinary proof. It is what it is. So just making statements and saying, well, this is true and that is true and that is true, and we ask for proof, and you tell me, well, you need superpowers to understand it, or you got to wear special glasses to see it, or it's only the certain, no, it's irrelevant. I only want to know what's true. My eyes and ears are open. If you can demonstrate that I'm wrong, great. I've just learned something and I'm excited to learn something. And it is what it is. So basically, what happened with the whole Keith and Jim thing, keeping this in mind. So what do we know about DHT? We know that taking the transdermal cream increases DHT more than injectables from everything we've kind of learned so far. We know that the 5-alpha reductase enzyme is more prevalent on the scrotum, and that's why when you apply the cream there, it tends to convert much higher to DHT. Not only does it absorb the testosterone a lot higher, but more of that testosterone converts to DHT. We also know that injectables can also tend to raise estrogen levels a bit, but not DHT anywhere near as much as the cream does. We know that the bioavailable transdermal cream, like the type that Dr. Nichols used, has a beneficial effect on lipids, on cholesterol, compared to synthetic injectables that can have possibly a negative effect on lipids, cholesterol. It's got wonderful effects on libido, on energy. It has no effect on prostate. So if any of you guys are taking any type of testosterone or any type of cream, or wanting to do it, and the doctor is saying, well, you know, there's a fear of prostate cancer or prostate growth or whatever, tell him to show you the studies. Tell him to demonstrate that what he's saying is true, because unfortunately for him, there are no studies that demonstrate any harm from testosterone or from DHT on the prostate. None, zero, nada. I've looked, we've all looked, there are none. So whatever he says, ask him. I will believe you if you can demonstrate that what you are saying is true. And if you can't, sorry, here's my studies, here are my research that I found that show that what you're saying is wrong. Okay, that's just the way it works. So we know, most importantly, that DHT causes no harm. There has not been a single study anywhere in all of the studies that have ever been done, contrary to what Jim Meehan was saying, that DHT can cause you harm. I've spoken to really high-level guys, like even Dr. Eric Serrano. There was something he told me about DHT, and I thought that was a little bit wrong, and I sent him a study, and he's looking at it, he's like, oh yeah. He goes, well, you know, it's funny. He says, I wouldn't have looked at this because I don't measure DHT. He says, I don't measure it. For me, DHT is almost irrelevant to this. You know, if it's high, great. If it's low, whatever. I don't measure it. So I'm not really going to see this caused that much of an increase or this caused that much of a decrease, because he says, why am I going to measure something that I'm not going to do anything about? The same thing with estrogen, with E2. Rousier said it best. He says, why do you guys bother to measure estrogen? He says, if you're not going to do anything about it, because we know now that it's completely crazy to want to block it or lower it, because that's what's giving all the health benefits. If we're not going to lower it, why measure it? And why measure DHT? Yet Meehan was insisting we needed to measure DHT. So where does this DHT come from? So about 10 to 15% of testosterone converts to DHT. What happened in this argument is Jim Meehan was stating that he's seen patients that had really, really high levels of DHT. Normal DHT levels for people that aren't on testosterone will be anywhere between, say, 50 to 100 nanograms per deciliter. And once you start taking testosterone, those DHT levels could go up to anywhere between 100 to, let's say, 500 nanograms per deciliter. He was claiming that he saw patients in the 2000s or even up into the 10,000s.
You're going to have massive DHT levels. In the 2000s, it's in, you know, the 10,000s. But make sure you're measuring those DHT levels, and you know, because you don't want to blow out your hair, inflame your prostate perhaps, or exacerbate an underlying, you know, psychiatric disorder. Really high levels of DHT. DHT levels are really, you know, they're in the stratosphere.
Which made no sense based on everything that we know, every study that we've read. We can go through them, and it just didn't jive. So that turned into a huge argument with Keith and with Jim. So, you know, and basically what would happen is we would say, well, you know, everything that we know and all the studies that we have demonstrate that what you're saying is false. And as soon as that would occur, you would hear that, he would just, well, you know, like I was saying earlier, this guy doesn't agree with me, so I'm going to block and block and block and block. So you can just stay in your own little box. Okay. Clearly he has no intention of ever knowing what's true, or you know, thinking that maybe what he knows could be wrong, and maybe someone has a better answer, or there's a new study, or what have you. Okay. So his claims, Jim's claims, were basically that DHT can cause harm. he was arguing with Keith that in regards to the fact that Keith does not measure DHT, because Keith knows that there's absolutely no need to. Jim was completely on the other end of the spectrum, saying, I've seen it go into the 2000s and the 10,000s, and it could cause issues, and you need to measure it. You can't just let it go out of control. Knowing that 10 to 15% of your test will convert to DHT, we couldn't figure out how it was possible for any patient to have 2,000, let alone 10,000 nanograms per deciliter of DHT. It just made no sense. So, well, how much testosterone is this guy taking? This guy would have to be taking like hundreds of thousands of milligrams a week or something. Like it just made no sense. And no matter how many times we would ask him to provide any type of evidence to back up what he was saying, just some kind of study or anything, it was left in the dark. And we realized that he wasn't seeing any of our questions, because the moment that we disagreed with him, he would block us. Like I was saying before, I don't like what this guy says. It's discriminatory. It's offensive. How dare he say that what I know is wrong? So block, 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 block. So we ended up going on that your YouTube channel, and we kept going with the posts over there. And he was trying desperately to pick apart the studies that we were presenting, the links we were presenting. One of the studies that he picked apart was a study that showed where they gave transdermal DHT in order to measure the effects it had on the body, be it good or be it bad. And what was the outcome? And one of the outcomes was a loss of bone mineral density, particularly in the spine. So Jim immediately jumped on top of that. As you see, DHT does cause harm. Here you go, bone mineral density loss in the spine. You're going to get osteoporosis. Everything about you is going to go horribly wrong, and that's why you should measure it. The problem is, in that study, they were not giving any testosterone whatsoever. They were providing only exogenous DHT and nothing else. And when you give only DHT and nothing else, guess what? It's going to suppress your testosterone. It's going to suppress your E2. It's going to suppress your LH and your FSH. And when all of those are suppressed, yes, you will have your bone mineral density is going to get suppressed. It's going to go down. And yes, you're going to have issues. The thing is that who's going to do that? In the real world, nobody is going to take just DHT, because we're not stupid. We're not doing that. We're taking testosterone with it. And as long as you're taking testosterone with it, you'll never have any of those issues. So it's not the DHT that caused the loss in bone mineral density. It's because it suppressed all of these other things. So as long as you're doing stuff to ensure that all these other things aren't suppressed, DHT causes no harm. It is what it is. You look at people that have osteoporosis and stuff like that, they're not taking any DHT or of any kind. It's these hormones have all been suppressed, and their bones are just completely brittle. You give somebody testosterone, it just improves everything across the board, and they just won't have these issues. So no need to measure DHT, no need to measure E2. He continued on about the fact that it was in the 2000s or the 10,000s. We knew it was a crock. And at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, we found out that Dr. Jim Meehan, with all his wonderful experience, was unable to differentiate between nanograms per deciliter and picograms per deciliter. So 2,000 picograms per deciliter is only 200 nanograms per deciliter, which is not 2,000s or 10,000s. And that's what the whole argument was about. If you would have just sat there with an open mind and said, I think DHT levels are dangerous, I think we should measure them, prove me wrong, we could have had a mature, professional discussion about why this is. Here's a study that shows that this and this and this has happened. Here's another study that shows, and we can keep throwing studies at you all day, and this is the way it works. And you'd say, oh, I didn't know that. I learned something today. Fantastic. You can't learn anything with that kind of attitude. Like, you just can't. It got to the point he was sending Keith nasty texts and blocking him, nasty Facebook messages blocking him. Half the people in the group were being blocked. So it just got to the point that this is silly, and frankly, I kicked him out of the group. So anyone's wondering why I kicked out of the group, is because of me.
Well, I made you a moderator of the group, so
yes.
That's my responsibility.
You did. So nothing against Jim. I'm sure he's a great guy. Jim, you got a wonderful speaking voice, a wonderful radio voice. That big, huge microphone in your office does help. And the problem is that for people that don't know their stuff, they hear this nice, professional, high-quality radio voice, and they'll say, "This guy is really pro, and he knows all his stuff." And no, guys, you need to ask questions. You can't just read one thing on a piece of paper and assume this is true because I've read it somewhere. Look it up. Ask other people, do you have the same information? Where did you get your information? Oh, I got it from a study. Can I see the study? Let's discuss the study because I interpret it like this and you interpret like this. Let's get someone else and figure out what is true, guys. What is true? That's all I care about. I don't care about what anybody believes. I just want to know what's true.
On finding the truth, Danny, do you agree that one has also to consider the background, the history of the person that is making a certain point in the discussion, to know where he is coming from, and more important, how serious one should accept this point? In our case, me too, I failed to research Dr. Jim Meehan's background because he appeared on several episodes of Jay Campbell's podcast, and I therefore thought that he was trusted by the evidence-based doctors. Only afterwards, it was brought to my attention that Jim Meehan is known to have some extreme non-evidence-based medical opinions. For example, he is very anti-vaccine. He has several complaints against him by groups of other doctors. He is known to be very rude and impolite toward colleagues and much more. You can all find of that if you just Google his name, Dr. Jim Meehan, on Google. So what's your opinion on background checking someone before judging his point in a discussion?
Well, we should. I mean, you saw, like, once I found all that stuff out and I had it validated by a bunch of other people, I gave you a hard time. I said, you got to take that video down. You want to make sure that the people watching your videos are being delivered. I mean, like I said, the best information that we have. And you don't want to put up something that's going to, confuse people or make them do the wrong thing or, tell their doctors, well, I saw it on this video online from the Lifting Dermatologist that, I should be measuring my DHT and that it's dangerous, or should that I be controlling my E2 or whatever other nonsense we've been, learned in the past. I was giving you a hard time. You and I were having an argument about taking down this video. And so we said, why don't we make another video that basically explains the content of that video? And you can put it as a disclaimer under the original video to say, once you've seen this video, you might want to watch this one. Because yes, there was some interesting stuff in there. There was some truth in there. I'm not saying the entire video was false, but that particular discussion about DHT, I'm sorry, it was just wrong. It was just wrong. And Jim, if you're watching this, if you want to still believe that it's wrong, please, I still have an open mind. Like I said, everything I know could still be bullshit. Maybe there's a better answer. Demonstrate your claims. Provide the study, provide the evidence, provide me something that I cannot possibly deny, and I will share it with everybody and say, hey, we can't ignore this. This is new evidence. But you haven't. There's just none of that has taken place. So should we background check? I mean, yeah. We did that video, and when the argument started happening, we started, Googling the guy's name, and, you could just Google his name. Like, don't take my word for it. Google the guy's name. It's there. I want to go to people that are well respected. I don't want to go to people that if they disagree, it's not going to turn into a, pissing contest or, threats or, insults and text messages in the middle of the night or whatever the case may be. I don't have time for that, and nobody does any of it. We're here for, like, we just want to learn, and we're here to, I learned something today. I want to share it with everybody. I learned this today. I'm going to go there and, oh, great. This guy, he learned something yesterday and he wants to share it. I just learned something. This is great. You can't have this type of, this kind of nonsense in a group.
Okay, to continue on the point you were making about the information given in my YouTube videos, on that I want to clearly state that not everything said by others in interviews or podcasts on my channel I necessarily agree with. I did not agree with every point made when I interviewed Dr. Mike Israel, for example. The same goes for Jim Meehan, and heck, I even interviewed Daniel Kelly. So, but when I clearly disagree with...
Who also blocked me, by
Yeah, well, congrats on that. You get blocked by all the best people. But when I clearly disagree with some strong points made in videos on my channel and even think those points are going against evidence-based medicine or being clearly false information, I will clearly address those points like I do now in this video together with you about Jim Meehan's statement on astronomical DHT levels due to TRT being very dangerous long-term. So based on one man's lab work, actually, that was, and given with measurement units, not confirmed units that were used for the testosterone. So yeah, that was quite a discussion. So Dr. Keith Nichols, yeah, he was really emotional about being attacked personally by Jim Meehan. Yeah, he wrote us a letter, and he left our group. Now he rejoined today, which I'm really grateful for. Thank you, Keith, if you're listening to this. And the same goes for Scott Howell, Dr. Scott Howell. He also left the group together with Keith, but he also rejoined yesterday. So our group is getting the evidence-based doctors back into it again.
I can actually chime in about that, about why he was so passionate and felt offended and just, you know, got so involved in this thing. I talked to him on the phone about a half hour ago or an hour ago, and he told me that when he started on this whole journey to TRT, he was very, very poorly managed. He felt like crap. He got a lot of really, really bad advice. And it took him a while to get things all figured out. So when he sees people make these kind of claims, he takes it really personally. He takes it like, you know, I remember when somebody told me something stupid like that once, and I felt like crap for a year, and I don't want people to go through this. Like, he wants everyone to be healthy. He wants everyone to feel good. He doesn't want anyone to have any problems. So as soon as he sees false information, he's all over that stuff. He will be very passionate and almost aggressive to back up his claims. And he'll post 20 studies until the other person concedes and say, Keith, you're right. He does not like false information. He just doesn't. He's open to discussion. He's open to debate. He's open to interpretation. But if it's just a false claim, yeah, he takes it personally.
Okay, and on that point, Keith wrote a nice letter in order to put all of this behind us. Do you want me to read it for us, Danny?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so Keith wrote us this letter that I posted under the video. So it said, Stephen, the unfortunate events of the last several days have been disturbing, but they also give us all the opportunity to learn some valuable lessons that may serve us very well going forward. First, we should discuss two very important concepts, and they are belief perseverance and confirmation bias. Belief perseverance is the tendency to maintain a belief even after the information that originally gave rise to it has been refuted and otherwise shown to be inaccurate. Such beliefs may even be strengthened when others attempt to present evidence debunking them, a phenomenon known as the backfire effect. Confirmation bias is the tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs or hypotheses. The events of the last several days are well-executed examples of these concepts. These unfortunate events began with the most recent YouTube video with Dr. Meehan and Scala hosted by herself. In that video, there were several statements made by Dr. Meehan that raised concerns as they were not based on known physiology or evidence-based medicine. Dr. Meehan reported that he had a patient on HCG, testosterone injections, and testosterone applied to the scrotum. When he measured labs, the patient's DHT was in the thousands. He also stated that the levels could even get into the 10,000s when on transscrotal testosterone. This was all because testosterone, when applied to the scrotum, causes DHT to get into the stratosphere. His concerns were that this would cause prostate issues such as hypertrophy, cancer, and down-regulation of the receptors, leading to feeling good initially and then crashing later. This was all based on the observations of a single patient. First off, testosterone is converted to DHT, and only a certain percentage of testosterone gets converted. In no study to date has DHT ever exceeded the testosterone level when using exogenous testosterone by any route of administration. This observation did not make sense based on known physiology or the medical literature. Second, the downregulation of androgen receptors does not occur. In fact, the opposite occurs as there is upregulation of receptors. This downregulation and the crash that follows is not seen in normal physiology or the medical literature. Dr. Meehan does not address how this can occur when basic physiology shows it cannot. This is an example of belief perseverance. Raising DHT by giving testosterone can cause prostate hypertrophy and prostate cancer has not been shown in the medical literature. What has been shown is that even with high serum levels of DHT, 10 times the normal, the intraprostatic DHT level remains stable, as it has its own control mechanism and the intraprostatic DHT is tightly controlled. This is yet another example of belief perseverance. I provided literature showing that DHT is not converted into the thousands in any study, and that raising DHT with testosterone is safe. This literature was attacked, yet absolutely nothing was provided to prove the contrary. Dr. Meehan pointed out in one of the studies where DHT was given for 2 years that there was a decrease in the spine bone mineral density, thus showing evidence of harm with high DHT. It caused no adverse effect on the prostate, which was his original concern. This is where belief perseverance and confirmational bias rears its ugly head again. What Dr. Meehan fails to recognize is that in this study, the men were given only DHT and nothing else, and by doing so, testosterone, estradiol, LH, and FSH were suppressed. And when that occurs, you will get a decrease in bone mineral density. This is in no way the same as raising DHT by giving testosterone, not suppressing it, which also raises estradiol and in every single study to date increases bone mineral density. I gave several reasons that DHT could have been that high. 90-30 as per lab results he provided, such as taking prohormones, DHT, DHT derivative anabolic steroids, and testosterone abuse. The total testosterone was not measured using the ultrafiltration method, so it could only measure up to 1500 nanograms per deciliter, and the level was more than 1500 nanograms per deciliter, so the exact level unknown. One reason I did not consider was the physician not understanding the different units of measure. Dr. Meehan failed to convert the DHT into the same unit of measure as the testosterone. Testosterone is measured in nanograms per deciliter and the DHT was reported in picograms per milliliter. So all of this danger created by Dr. Meehan concerning DHT was based on the misinterpretation of lab value in a single patient. The patient's DHT was in fact 193 nanograms per deciliter and testosterone was more than 1500 nanograms per deciliter. Dr. Meehan has said that is still twice normal, but it is quite far from 1930 nanograms per deciliter and the tenfold physical levels shown to be safe in the medical literature. You will notice that the testosterone was essentially 2 times normal as well. So, lessons learned. Observation does not prove causation. If it doesn't make sense, question it. Don't base an entire opinion on a single observation, as the observation may prove to be wrong, as in this case. Follow evidence-based medicine and don't be corrupted by belief perseverance and/or confirmational bias. Keep an open mind. Look at what studies actually demonstrate from a physiological standpoint, as in the DHT spine demineralization study. It wasn't DHT that did it. It was when you only gave DHT, you suppressed testosterone, estradiol, LH, and FSH. My additional personal experience: stay off forums and social media and focus on my patients. When I hear inaccurate information, I need to walk away. This has been a good lesson for all, but in the end, evidence-based medicine prevailed. Sincerely, Keith Nichols, MD. Okay, Danny, what did you think of that?
It's true. I can't fault anything that he said. I mean, it's evidence-based medicine. You want to make a claim, you provide the evidence, you look at the literature, you look at all the studies that have been done, you look at all the research that's been done. There's lots of it. There's nothing that ever indicated that testosterone is harmful. There's nothing that's ever indicated that DHT could be harmful. There's nothing that ever indicated that E2 has been harmful. Yes, evidence. Go with the evidence. And if you're not sure, ask for evidence. And if they can't provide it, well, maybe you don't want to believe it.
Okay, anything you need to add to this video, Danny, before we close it?
I need to add, real quick, I just brought up E2. This whole thing about wanting to control E2 and keeping E2 in range between, what was it, 20 to 30 pgml. That was all taken from the bodybuilding community. They were taking massive amounts of testosterone. They felt like if you had the lowest amount of estrogen possible, you would, get that super dry, hard look, and so on and so forth. And does it work? I mean, yeah, maybe for that particular effect that they're trying to go after, they'll get it by putting, E2 really, really low. Is it healthy? No, it's insane. They're putting their bodies through into a terrible state, and you can't do that long term. What we're trying to do here is nothing to do with bodybuilding or going to compete and whatever. We're trying to get strong, yes, but we're trying to be healthy. We don't want to destroy our cardiovascular system. We don't want to destroy our, any of these other stuff. We're trying to get as healthy as possible, and by controlling E2 like they did for their purpose, would be silly for us. It completely goes against doing this to stay healthy. So just because one person is doing one thing for a specific purpose doesn't mean that you can take that same principle and apply it to what you want to do that is a completely different purpose. So that's about it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Danny, for your contribution, your big contribution to this video. Really appreciate it. And thank you all viewers, subscribers to watch till the end of the video. And as promised, there is some good news to give. As I promised earlier, pretty soon Dr. Keith Nichols and Dr. Scott Howell, who both left YouTube and our Facebook group together, they will be back on my YouTube channel. So commenting and helping out all of you guys with your hormone related issues. They're already back in the group since today. So I really thank you both for that, and all the viewers participate in the discussions under the video or in our closed Facebook group. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Thanks, Danny.